Oh, say it ain't so, Sam. I've been bragging on Sam Darnold all year, and he turned back into Sam Darnold. We'll talk about that and more here today on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
She's absolutely right. It's your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. Locked On NFL, where we have a double dose of NFL shows hitting you up head every single day. This is the barbershop version of the show. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. That is correct. Game Time is the place for you to get tickets. Make sure you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Kevin Oestreicher is today's expert, as he always is on Tuesdays. We're going to go over Lamar versus Josh. Would you rather win that game this weekend, or would you rather your guy win the MVP? We'll talk about that. Steelers quarterback dilemma. They do have one. They keep trying to fire their coach, but their coach hasn't had a good quarterback since Big Ben retired. We'll discuss that a little bit. I know Oestreicher has some very, very good things to say about those Steelers. And we'll start the show today with Say It Ain't So, Sam. And what I mean by that is Sam Darnold. Make sure you, before I go on, make sure you listen to Locked On Locked On NFL, wherever you get your podcast. Watch it wherever you watch your podcast. Also, slide on over to Amazon Music and check out Locked On NFL. All right. Okay. Last week in the game that was to decide the NFC North, Sam Darnold had a bad game. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give him another chance, because the Sam Darnold non-believers were out in full force last week. They out in full force again today, because my man laid a big egg on national TV in the playoffs, and they just did not have a chance last night against the Rams.
Man, with that, all those eggs, Sam Darnold, you can make an omelet out of those. It was that bad for Sam Darnold. And look, I don't blame people who are back out in full force, because, and this is something a lot of teams that are year in, year out contenders talk about. It doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. Like, we can admit Sam Darnold, he's a guy that not a lot of people were expecting a lot from. It was like, oh, it's okay, great, Sam Darnold. Yeah, Minnesota, nice job at a top 10 pick or whatever. But he led them to a good place. But it doesn't matter when you have the regular season you had, and then you falter again. I know there's conversations about Kevin O'Connell, and yes, he's a great culture builder, but this team just keeps folding when it matters. And when they're trying to get to where they want to go, and that is a Super Bowl championship, they consistently can't get the job done. So it was a rough game. It was a rough end to the season for Sam Darnold. And from Kevin O'Connell's press conference, you can certainly tell that he is not going to be back in Minnesota next season. Obviously, J.J. McCarthy, despite all the calls to trade him from all different types of people, he is the future there in Minnesota. So, look, I think you got to commend Sam Darnold for what he was able to do this season. But you're right. This is something that he turned back into Jets. I'm seeing ghosts, Sam Darnold. And I know well, you talked about it. This must hurt you to the core because of how in on Minnesota you were this season.
Well, what I was in on is their structure, the things that they've done, and I'm in on them until I'm out on them. And what I mean by that is, I know they had to overcome a whole bunch, because it's not just him. It's also Christian Darrisaw at left tackle, and they had to rely on a guy in Cam Robinson at left tackle, who is an okay player. But when you're talking about winning a championship, it's different stuff. I want you to hear Lucas Braun here from Locked On Vikings and listen to I guess it's agony, but it's also a sense of, look, it is what it is. Check Luke out.
Well, it ends with a whimper. 14-3 Minnesota Vikings going to Arizona to play the LA Rams, which is weird to begin with. They lose 27-9, and that greatly undersells how bad it was. What's up, everybody? I'm Luke Braun. I do Locked On Vikings, and the Vikings got absolutely torched by a much better LA Rams team. They were smarter, they were stronger, they were faster, they were better. There's no mincing words about it. So we'll go on Locked On Vikings. We'll eulogize this season. I'm about to go live here on the postcast. But there's a reason that I'm wearing the J.J. McCarthy winter whiteout jersey today, because the future is still in Minnesota. And as horrible as Sam Darnold was, there's no reason to keep him. The Vikings don't want to buy back into that. They don't have to because they've got a rookie in the building. They got to still rebuild the rest of their QB room and rebuild their O-line and rebuild their secondary and maybe rebuild a lot of their defensive line. There's a lot of work to do, but that's what Locked On Vikings is for all offseason long. I'll see you there.
Plays take you so far. Players are the ones that actually get you further. And even though guys like Jonathan Grenard, who they picked up this year from Houston, had a great season and got the accolades for it. Danielle Hunter, the guy that they let go, who Houston decided to keep, they're moving on to round 2. And I know it's not apples to apples, but I want to remind people of something. Before I get to the Rams and what they did last night and how that affects the beautiful people out in Los Angeles that are, hurting because of all of the fires, I want to remind everyone exactly how we got here and how fortunate Minnesota was to win those games. I want you to hear what some people said early in the season all around the Locked On Podcast Network when the Minnesota Vikings lost their rookie quarterback and had to depend on Sam Darnold in the first place.
It was a tough day for the Minnesota Vikings and the Minnesota Vikings fan base. Their rookie quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, will be out for the season with a torn meniscus.
The first round quarterback to lose his full rookie season to injury in the Super Bowl era.
Injuries are a part of the game, and while the Vikings have suffered more things in the last month than usual, we're on a bit of a hot streak of things. This is kind of the deal.
Any rookie gets a major injury, and it just sets back their career quite a bit.
He'll miss, call it 6 months, right? I tweeted 9. That's the absolute, maximum recommended recovery time, and for lay people. That's not necessarily for athletes.
We were hoping that Sam Darnold would win this job based on merit. Now it's due to injury.
Could they trade Justin Jefferson now that everything has changed?
The history of heartbreak for the Minnesota Vikings, I think it's unrivaled in the NFL.
If you don't like it, go follow chess players.
Yeah, man. See, so now that we look back to training camp and we hear what the Vikings actually went through this year, this is why we were all so surprised that they were playing well. And I think a lot of us were just rooting for Sam Darnold to also be what Baker Mayfield ended up being. And that's a guy that people gave up on and that you put him in the right system and that they have some success. And that's exactly what happened. But to think that they were going to go to the Super Bowl with him is a mistake.
Yeah, it's expectation versus reality, and reality versus actually resume. Because I think a reality can be skewed, and guys have overcome this before. I'm not saying that just because, you might be painted this beautiful reality doesn't mean that they can never overcome who they were in the past. But this the writing was on the wall with the way Minnesota finished the season. And I think that there was confidence in the building in Minnesota because essentially, Wig, in my opinion, Minnesota was playing with house money the whole year, where nobody expected anything from them. JJ McCarthy goes down. And even then, even with JJ, was he going to start week 1, even if he was healthy?
No.
It was really a quote unquote rebuild year, a retooling year for Minnesota. And so I think that their season was an overwhelming success, but it still hurts because you have those expectations built up throughout the season of maybe we're the team of destiny. Maybe this is the team. And Sam Darnold is finally the Sam Darnold that we saw at USC. And finally, we were the ones getting the best. And the culture is so good. Who has a better culture than the Minnesota Vikings? It's an awesome culture over there. But, of course, in the NFL, the law of averages usually evens out. And when you're overachieving, sometimes that can have you come crashing back down to earth. You know what, Luke? Maybe I will go follow some chess players. Maybe I will. I don't know anything about chess, but now that Luke has opened that invitation for me, maybe I'll go take it.
Yeah, well, a reminder for me early in the year when the New York Giants lost to the Minnesota Vikings. This is what Patricia Traynor, and I'm going to play this more than once. This is my homegirl, Patricia Traynor from Locked On Giants. She actually had this to say to the Giants secondary.
Roasted by Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, people.
Yeah, there you go. My girl Patty coming through with the quote of the day, Sam Darnold, people. And we're going to discuss the Los Angeles Rams. We're going to talk about them and their trek to Glendale, Arizona with Glendale, Arizona, with all of those busloads of fans and giving the city just at least one night to get something else put on their mind and something really, really good. We'll discuss that and more stuff going on in the playoffs with Kevin Ostracker here on Locked On NFL. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you're going to get any money back. That's the way it used to be. And then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is what taxes are. Get an expert now on TurboTax. Only available with TurboTax Live, full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at turbotax.com/guarantee. All right, rolling along here on Locked On NFL. We did a lot of talking about Kevin Ostrack and I. We did a lot of talking about Sam Darnold in the first segment. We're going to do some more talk about Sam Darnold here because this thing just totally came crashing down. And now he's gone from being the next Baker Mayfield to probably being the next Marcus Mariota, which means you got a second chance, but we still don't want you to be our QB. I think Kenny Pickett kind of underwent the same thing a little bit. And maybe a couple of other people. That kid from North Carolina a few years back that got drafted in front of Patrick Mahomes, he was another dude that bounced around between the Bears and the Bills. The Rams don't have that problem. The Rams made a trade back in the day to get my man Matthew Stafford, and boy, did he deliver for them in the biggest games last night. The Rams did something, though, KO. They really, really won this game for themselves, but they also won it in spite of a very tough situation in LA.
Yeah, and again, I think that just the fact that the Rams were able to go out there and do this after everything that's going on in the city. I know there's so much devastation out there right now, and of course, thoughts and prayers to everybody who is impacted and affected by that. But you know, this seemed like a team in Los Angeles that rallied around that fact, rallied around their city, and was able to put it to, again, this was not a bad Minnesota Vikings team.
No,
I think that sometimes when playoff blowouts happen, there's a narrative like, oh, that team was bad. Or like, no, that's not the case. I mean, the Rams just played really well and they executed well. And you could sense the passion and the energy that they had going into that game. And I thought it was really inspiring personally. And I feel like for this Los Angeles team, there's always that one that you don't really expect a lot from. You know, it's like, okay, is Matthew Stafford still Matthew Stafford? Is he going to be able to carry the Rams again? How's it going to go? I think that, look, this team has talent. I know that they've lost guys and Aaron Donald's no longer there. And, you know, I think I think when people look at the Rams, I think they see Aaron Donald retiring and they're like, okay, well, they lost their best player, so it's over now. Like, it's done. But this has been kind of like, people were picking Seattle to win the division. Obviously, San Francisco was the favorite before the injuries, but this Rams team has kind of overcome a lot, and the resiliency they've shown throughout the season is, you know, I thought it was really cool to watch. And with everything that they've done this year, and now to, you know, play the way that they did for their city last night, I thought was really, really cool.
And they are not your normal Cinderella type team. They have championship pedigree that isn't very old. You know, they can count it on one hand. They won't use all of their fingers if you count how many years they were able to since they were able to win it all. Here's my man from Locked On Rams to tell you how good they feel and the bulletin board material that might have helped them win.
So who's going to text Dan Campbell to tell him that the Rams won? He said he was going to see the Vikings in 2 weeks. He might be seeing the Rams in 2 weeks if they continue to play like they did on Monday night. They beat the Vikings 27-9, but that doesn't tell the whole story. That doesn't tell you how dominant of a win this was for LA. He had 6 sacks on Sam Darnold in the first half. That was the most sacks on any quarterback in the first half of a playoff game in 25 years. Aaron Donald was in the building. I'm not so sure that number 99 wasn't playing. They had Sam Darnold seeing goes quick, and you saw this Rams offense that struggled in the first quarter all season long. They were 31st in first quarter scoring. They scored 10 points in the first quarter, and they held this Vikings team that was second in the league in first quarter scoring to just 2 first downs. This Rams team won this game in the first half, and yes, everyone's going to count them out against the Eagles. That's exactly where this Rams team likes to be. You count this team out, that's when they come up big, and this team, no one wants to play them. This is a dangerous football team.
He ain't lying. They are dangerous, and one of the real dangerous things about it is Philly actually has some problems scoring the ball sometimes, and the Rams are totally healthy, and it's not the same team that Philly beat earlier this year.
Nope, it is not. And I feel like, playoffs are that one game, anything can happen, 60 minutes, doesn't matter what happened early in the season. And that's what I think is so beautiful about the postseason is that, a team that everybody's going to be picking the Eagles in this game. I mean, we can be honest about that, but I feel like this could be like the biggest upset game that we see this upcoming weekend, because I think the Rams are a talented team. As I said, I think, an offense that has Kyren Williams and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp on it, and like they have dudes. Like, I feel like they just are. They've been the most underrated team in football this season, in my opinion. And this doesn't shock me that they've made it this far. And honestly, I feel like they could go further.
And their real youth is on defense, and that defense got 9 sacks last night, and they are playing well. Verse and Fisk do not play like rookies. I want to turn my attention to another team that has quarterback dilemmas, and that is Pittsburgh. Everyone wants to fire Mike Tomlin. I say be careful what you ask for. The dude always wins, always gives you a shot. That being said, I do think things are a little bit stale in Pittsburgh, but I don't think they're stale because Tomlin has forgotten how to be innovative or forgotten how to implement the things that he likes to implement. I think they're stale because they are too good to get a good quarterback, but not bad enough to get a good quarterback. And they always end up with, as of late, a quarterback that is kind of hit or miss. Chris Carter does a really, really good job here on Locked On Steelers talking about this very, very subject.
I spent yesterday talking up and down about coaching, Mike Tomlin staying, what else needs to happen there. We'll have time to revisit that when those moves happen. But with the Steelers locker room cleanout day being yesterday, the Steelers we talked to a bunch of guys. We got to talk to Russell Wilson again. And the question is, was that the last time we're going to get to talk to Russell Wilson with Steelers stuff on inside the Steelers locker room? And should it be the last time? Alan, what is your take right now about how the Steelers need to handle the quarterback situation moving forward?
They're in a bad spot, man. I don't know that there's a right answer to this question as we sit here right now. I mean, I can't really imagine the Steelers bringing Russell Wilson back and expecting it to be better in 2025 than it was in 2024. He'll be, a year older. I thought he got worse as the season went on. He wasn't healthy, had the calf injury. Like that, it's just a lot of bad that adds up. But I also look around and I don't see a lot of obviously better options either. Sam Darnold, I mean, we're recording this during the playoff game, and somebody needs to go put a wellness check out on Sam Darnold's agent, because that man's lost about a lifetime's worth of money since the ball snapped.
It was thought that Sam Darnold may be an option for Pittsburgh moving forward. Well, that's out of the window now. The Steelers might just have to run it back with the 2 guys that they have, and that's just going to lead to more Tomlin talk.
And I'll tell you, as someone who covers an opposing team in the AFC North, I am, if I'm the Ravens, I'm licking my chops at that scenario. I love that. Extend Russell Wilson for 10 years while you're at it. Like this for Pittsburgh is a rough situation. And I will be on the hill always of that they should trade for Kyler Murray. Now, is he even available? Probably not. Who knows? But that's the type of move they'd have to make. Or some craziness, Wig. I'll do a little, I'll put on the tinfoil hat for you for a second.
Uh-oh.
If Dion goes to Dallas and he wants Shedeur, well, then Dak is no longer going to be there. And I think that might be best case scenario for Pittsburgh if Dak becomes available by that scenario and they're able to make some move for Dak in that deal. So
yeah, I wonder what the cap ramifications are. Because
I don't know that either. Yeah,
they gave Dak. I think all that money. I think if the trade, the signing bonus money is what would really make that super, super tricky. But you're right. When you're a team like Pittsburgh, that 10-win area, seemingly every single season, it's hard for you to find. You really have to draft and develop a guy, and they haven't seemed to hit that magic button to be able to do that. I tell you who got quarterbacks, though. That's Baltimore and Buffalo. And guess what? It is setting up this weekend for a Lollapalooza of a game. The media hype surrounding this is going to be huge. We'll discuss that and more in the third segment here on Locked On NFL after my girl Patty tells us this again.
Roasted by Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, people.
Today's show is brought to you and sponsored in part by Game Time. That is correct, man. Game Time is the absolute place to be. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year that had my favorite, Maze and Frankie Beverly. And I saw him, and I am so excited. I saw him before he passed on. The energy and excitement were unforgettable, and now Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events and the ones that you'll never, ever forget with their new feature called Game Time Picks. This feature filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets for an upcoming event using the Game Time app. With Game Time Picks, I found amazing deals and could even see the view from my seat before buying. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprises at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code. I'll spell it for you, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, moving along here on Locked On NFL with my man, Kevin Oestreicher, talking about a whole bunch of things today. Sam Darnold's one of them. The Pittsburgh Steelers not having quarterbacks is another. The playoffs, it's all coming to a head now with this MVP race between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. But with so much talk about who outplays the other, all the talk should be about the winner of this game actually getting over yet another hurdle in everybody's mind about their greatness and their legacy. And they ain't got to worry about playing Patrick Mahomes this week because they got to both get through each other. But before I do that and talk about this game with KO, I wanted to go back to something that I think it was 3-4 weeks ago that I played. My man, Joe Marino from Locked On Bills, talking about what everybody will be talking about this week, and that is who the real MVP is.
For the fifth consecutive season, the Buffalo Bills are AFC East champs, and Josh Allen is solidifying his case to be the NFL MVP. I'm Joe Marino, host of the Locked On Bills podcast. The Bills 35-10 winners over the San Francisco 49ers, and the Bills clinching the AFC East in a year that so many people thought the Bills were rebuilding. They're transitioning. They're taking a step back. They clinch the East with 5 games left to play in the season, 3 still in the division, and the Bills have already claimed it, guaranteeing at least one home playoff game, and that's what it comes down to. It's about playoff positioning. The Bills have the tiebreaker over the Chiefs, but they need the Chiefs to lose another game. They have to have at least a tie record with Kansas City to get that number 1 seed. Oh, by the way, Josh Allen, the first player in the history of the NFL, first quarterback in the history of the NFL with a rushing, receiving, and passing touchdown in the same game. It's time for him to be the NFL MVP.
All right, there you go. He said a whole bunch of stuff at the end right there to get Josh Allen MVP. We could probably do the exact same thing if we're really keeping it a buck for Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson has done a whole bunch of things like get 900 yards and have 40-4, 10-1 touchdown to interception ratio. The Bills did not get that home field advantage. Obviously, we know that, because if they did, they would not be playing Baltimore this week. Kansas City would. But now they have to. KO, are you geared up, man? Are you ready? And is this all about the MVP and who outplays who, or is it about who actually wins the game? And does one thing have to do with the other?
Yeah, I'm amped up for this game. It kind of felt like this was the matchup that was destined to be in the divisional. And in terms of what it means and what storylines, the MVP conversation is over. And I mean over in terms of just it doesn't mean anything. Right? I mean,
not now, it doesn't.
What matters is winning the Super Bowl. And, that's the goal here. And I think both teams feel that way too, where Josh wants to win the Super Bowl over an MVP. Lamar wants to win a Super Bowl over an MVP. John Harbaugh even talked about how Lamar doesn't talk about it. And, there's that chatter isn't happening within the Ravens right now because they're so singularly focused on that Super Bowl goal. Both these teams are super talented. And I think it's going to be an awesome game because it is the two MVP frontrunners, and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. So MVP versus Super Bowl, obviously one has a lot more weight than the other. One is a great personal accolade. And, Lamar's won 2 of them. Josh hasn't won one yet. But even if Josh doesn't win this one this season, I think he will win some in the future. I think he's a great player. But, Lamar has gone on record and said that, he thinks it's more of a team award. Credit to his offensive line, credit to, his teammates. And while it's a great thing, that Super Bowl is what's in front of both of these teams. And that's exactly where both these teams want to get to.
I'm leaning Baltimore in this game, but I will tell you this. This is the first year where you could literally tell me that there are 4, maybe even 5 guys who could get the MVP, and I wouldn't even argue with you. It's Josh, it's Lamar in no particular order, it's Saquon, it's Derrick Henry, and Joe Burrow, maybe even Jamar Chase. I mean, these dudes all did things this year that are MVP worthy. Here's the thing that I want to tackle, though. Everybody wants to point to, and you and I said it, Lamar won 2 without Derrick Henry, right? But everybody wants to point to that part of it. Didn't Tom Brady win an MVP when he had Randy Moss and Gronk on his team at one time? He did, right? And Gronk is the greatest tight end ever, and Randy Moss, one of the 2 greatest wide receivers ever. How many times did Joe Montana or Steve Young win it and they had Jerry Rice? When Kurt Warner had it, he won it. He had Marshall Faulk and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce. You go down the line and having great teammates. Oh, by the way, Patrick Mahomes won it, and he had Tyreek Hill and he had Kelsey in their prime. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, every player that wins the MVP sometimes has great teammates on his team that allows him to do it too. And no one says that. We need to stop this foolishness and coming up with these narratives just to try to diminish players, man, and just realize that we're lucky to have 5 guys that have been, or 5 or 6 guys, in my opinion, this year that have been MVP worthy.
Yeah, there's incredible talent in the league this season. And, to that point, Wig, people were trying to bring Joe Burrow back in the MVP conversation. And doesn't he have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and all those guys? So, yes, Lamar Jackson's supporting cast is better than Josh Allen. So I'm not trying to debate that fact. I think that Baltimore, this is the best group of receiving weapons and offensive skill talent that they have had around Lamar Jackson. And a lot of that has to do with Derrick Henry, but Lamar and Derrick Henry both prop each other up, and Lamar has been punished for having Derrick on his team. And, if I'm James Cook, I'm just like, man, hey, what did I do to deserve all this stuff? James Cook had a great season. He had over 1,000 yards.
Getting all these strays, man. He's like, y'all committing strays and drive-bys on dude, and y'all really ain't mentioning his name. And I think that's the problem. So, yeah, it's all going to be settled on the field, man. But I can tell you, I'm probably as excited for this game this weekend because it's going to make everybody shut up. As opposed, I mean, I was excited for Detroit, Minnesota too, but this one has so many ramifications all up over it. I just can't wait to get to it. One thing we won't hear about when these 2 guys play this weekend is this.
Roasted by Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, people.
No, Sam Darnold ain't gonna be up in Buffalo this weekend, man. Patricia Traynor is a superstar of the show, and she wasn't even here, man. I tell you who was here, Kevin Ostraker, who'll be back here next week. I'm Tony Wiggins. I'll be back tomorrow, but Tyler Rowland will be back before me here on Locked On NFL with the Locked On NFL AM show. He's gonna wake you up like a shot of an espresso. Make sure you go check us both out on Locked On NFL, wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch them or you listen to them. KO, have a good one, man. We'll see you this time, same place next week. And for all of y'all, make sure y'all tune back in to Locked On NFL here on the Locked On Podcast Network.